now it's about condensing. Now it's about being having a rush plan that's very smart, having 4 guys up front that hopefully you can try to get after the quarterback without having to commit more guys into the rush. And then at times, take your chances with pressure. The problem is he's so advanced at playing from the pocket. He understands that rhythm and time. And what does the Commanders do? They go and make it harder by adding Deebo Samuel, a guy that you can get the ball in multiple ways without Jayden Daniels having to push the ball down the field and still making explosive plays. So it'll be interesting to see how they would defend him, but that would be the plan that I would deploy.
I love what Swagu was saying, especially the perspectives. He's a defensive lineman. Yeah. I was a cornerback. So when he says that, keep him in the pocket, we had to trust those big guys up front that they were going to actually keep him in the pocket, and then plays weren't going to be 10 seconds long. But he said, you think about it last year, Cliff Kingsbury comes over. He's a first-time coordinator for the Commanders. I love that. And then Jayden Daniels, he's a rookie. So teams are going in not knowing, all right, we're figuring out in the middle of the season, we're getting tempo. We're getting a bunch of 4x1 sets. Now going into year 2, everybody will expect that. But something that Marcus ended with, when you add a guy like Deebo Samuel for a second-year quarterback, give a new wrinkle. He is going to be that new wrinkle. Where they line him up, how they choose to use him. Will he be in the backfield? Will he do some of the things that an Austin Eckler did last year? Will he be able to throw those screens out to him on the outside? And then the second part of it is protection for a quarterback going into year 2. We saw C.J. Stroud this past year struggle with getting hit and his offensive lineman giving up sacks. You bring in a Laramie Tunsil and you solidify that offensive line, that gives Jayden Daniels all the confidence in the world.
Yeah, Deebo averaged the most yards after the catch per reception among wide receivers last season. I feel like the trust circle was a heart more than it was a circle.
I love you too, Swagu.
It was cute.
Because it's love. It's love involved.
Amongst those, I'm acting like I'm part of it. I'm not part of it.
Yeah.
I wasn't no D lineman. All right, Bo Nix, let's go to that.
You my TV.
Thank you. Bo Nix was the last of the first-round quarterbacks selected last season, but he led the Broncos to the playoffs as a rookie. And the Broncos got Nix some help on offense with the signing of Evan Ingram, who has the second most receptions among tight ends over the last 3 seasons, of course. They also addressed the offense in the draft with R.J. Harvey and Pat Bryant. On defense, they got 2 big playmakers from the 49ers in Talanoa Hufanga and Drake Greenlaw. Plus, they drafted corner Jahdae Barron in the first round. That was a sneaky, really good pickup. Now, as for Nix, year 1, it was really good, right? I'm sure Sean Payton will have a list of things he wants to see his quarterback improve on. Tim, for you, where would you start?
I think where I would start is this. I felt like at times he was really streaky. When he was on, he was really good. Like, go look at week 17 this past year. It was like he couldn't miss. Then there were games where it was like he couldn't get in a rhythm. You know, it was like hovering around 50% completion percentage. Felt like there were times that he was off and he couldn't find it. And I think that's a little bit of who he is and who he was in college. So, you know, kind of dialing that in and then growing as a passer from inside the pocket. You know, I think one thing that was absolutely evident is like when you watch him play and you watch them move him around, he was really good. And Sean Payton did an excellent job of leaning into that with Bo Nix. I think the growth from inside the pocket, much like you see from a lot of young quarterbacks, is where you can see the biggest jump from year 1 to year 2. But make no mistake about it, to do what he did this year in the AFC West, with all the expectations of all those teams in that division, to do what he did, throwing 20 passes, running for another 4. He had an outstanding rookie season. Yeah. I think he's going to get better, and I think Sean Payton is going to continue to do a good job around him.
And that was an outstanding rookie season on a team where I think the organization felt like they needed to add more offensive firepower. So what are the Broncos doing for agency? They go out and grab and sign Evan Ingram, who was a weapon in Jacksonville when he was healthy. They go into the draft and use a second-round draft pick on running back R.J. Harvey. They get Bo Nix another weapon. They get him the semblance of a run game. And, Tim, you're talking about what Bo Nix showed people in his rookie year and the qualities that he demonstrated. I think if you're going to speak to the people in the Broncos organization, his growth should be that much greater in a second year when he's surrounded by more weapons than he had during his rookie season in Denver.
Yeah, it seems like they're making all the right moves there for Bo Nix. And of course, Sean Payton will have so many things up his sleeve, as Tim alluded to. Now, we do have some contract news here on NFL Live, new on the show. Adam, what's going on in Minnesota?
They've signed their linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel to a 1-year, $23 million extension that includes $22.4 million guaranteed. If people watched the way that Van Ginkel affected the game this year after he left Miami, they saw the type of impact he had on the Vikings defense. It was huge. The Vikings recognized it, and today they signed him to a 1-year extension, giving him a raise and keeping him in Minnesota for another year.
Another great option for J.J. McCarthy, as he's got so many in that offense. You're still pretty plugged in, right, with the Pats. What did you make of their roster rebuild this offseason?
Well, it lets you know that they love Drake May. And I look on top of that, Mike Vrabel, he was a guy that was a hot name as far as the offseason when it comes to coaches. He chose to go to New England. A lot of that had to be because of who was under center at the quarterback position. And then you talk about free agency, spending the most money. Then you go to the draft. You get a guy like Will Campbell. Draft night, you wonder what a guy's going to say. He's emotional. He just got drafted. He'll die to protect Drake May. That's how much he loves this new team already. He's going to fit right in. Something that they were lacking on offense, I felt like, was big playability. Being able to throw a screen pass out to a guy like Kyle Williams and let him make a few guys miss and take it the distance. And then Travion Henderson, the running back from Ohio State, a guy that can pass protect one on third down, but a guy that is different with the ball in his hands, which will be a nice change of pace from Ramondre Stevenson, the lead back for the New England Patriots.
There is a very I would say a very bad stench, because my organization and franchise has been a victim of what I watch New England do, and that's because I've watched the Eagles do it for years, and that is what this looks like. This looks like the confidence in a young quarterback. Now let's go out and put pieces around him offensively and defensively as well. And we know Mike Vrabel calling card. We know that he wants to play elite level defense, but more importantly, this is the investment from Kraft. This is the investment in a new coach and a new era. And what we talked about with New England for so many years was the lack of talent, mainly on the offensive side of the football. They wasted no time. They had a lot of cap space, and they wasted no time adding pieces to continue to reassure this young quarterback that this is what we're putting you in a position to be very successful based on the small sample size of what we got from you last year, which was enough to get New England excited again. This AFC division now has to really be, they become a factor once again in the AFC East.
Yeah, you called it a stench. Spoken like a true Cowboys fan. It smells like the Eagles. It smells like maybe they're chasing some greatness. Tim, a whole new coaching staff for Drake May this season, though. What's going to be the biggest challenge for him?
The biggest challenge for him is the mental aspect of it's a restart. Like you're learning, everything's brand new now. It's brand new offense. And Josh McDaniels is going to put a lot on the quarterback. It's one of the reasons, guys that are smart have played well for him, whether it's protections, whether it's checks, whether it's, just volume of